Today we're doing rose pruning in winter, and it's actually quite important to do rose pruning. One for the actually health of the plant and for beauty of the whole yard. But we got to first start with our arsenal. Our arsenal really consists of really two type of things. Basically a pair of loppers here, and these are hand pruners, and these I pretty much keep sharpened up and oiled. This particular one here, the red one, is actually used for grapes, and we're going to be doing grapes a little bit later. And it's good for getting in there. We can also use it for roses. This is for, of course, larger canes and branches. And this is basically a cheap hand pruner that I don't even know where I got it anymore. You can get this anywhere, any hardware store. But one thing you need to really understand is on a lopper, for instance, when you want to cut something, you really have to cut it in this area. Don't cut a branch in this area. It takes too much energy to do it. You actually have to really cut your branches generally in this area right here. It's really right next to the fulcrum, that's what's the pivot point for your mechanical advantage. So you cut branches here, don't have to cut it here, and I generally go for the edge cycle or cyclical type here because it gives a cleaner cut. Same thing goes for the hand pruners. You can actually see the two are really just the same thing. They're both a curved edge like that, and it gives you a nice sawing edge. And this one is kind of edged as well, but it's not curved this way, but it's curved this way. So shall we start? Okay, we can start by first working on this flower. This is a hybrid tea rose, and the way you can tell a hybrid tea rose is it really has one single flower. A hybrid tea generally is a cross type of plant that's used late 18 something. I forget actually the year it actually was done. They started making these, but it only has one flower. While a floral bundle is compared, it has a whole bundle or a whole plumage of flowers in one area. But before we actually get to the winter pruning, I'd like to actually show you a little bit of things that you can do during the summer in order to be able to get your roses to flower a little bit more. If you take a look at a lot of it, the first step is really to deadhead your roses. And you can see right here I have a nice deadhead rose, and where this flower is ready to go. Okay. Now, let me go ahead and take off the flower stuff. You can actually see here when you actually want to cut back a rose, you have to cut this off, but there's a particular place you have to cut it. You see here you have 3 leaves over here, and you have 5 right here. Generally what you do is you cut up to the 5, which is right here, or you can cut back to the stem, which is right here. In this case, I'm going to cut it off to here, where is the next set of 5 leaves. What happens is this will then eventually take off and have another bud growing. You can see another one's starting right there. All the stuff goes into the compost. Okay. And over here you can do the same thing with this one. If we wanted to remove this particular flower, we can see there's 3 here, 5 here, and it's 5 here. All right. So what I would do is I would take it back to here, and you can see that's where it was cut before, previously, which was right here. This one started a new flower, and you can actually see another one starting right here from the previous cut. So this one actually was going to flower some more. So we'll go ahead and cut it right here, and then it'll flower again. The interesting part about doing this kind of stuff is in the winter, you really have to take care of these roses. Now here in California, it really doesn't really freeze that much. We get a frost once in a while, but it's not really that bad. In colder climates, you would have to cut it back all the way down to its knot. And the knot really is located down at the bottom of the whole plant itself. That is where the graft between the hybrid tea, which is the top part of the plant, and the roots. It generally gives you roots that will grow in really bad soil or in different soil locations, while the top you can actually put any type of rose you want. So they graft it together by an omega, and the reason it's called an omega is like the omega, alpha and omega. It's an omega graft where the bottom is actually the bottom part of the omega, and the top part of which is called a scion, which is of your graph, is called the top part of your omega. And they fit together, and they put some wax around it to glue it together. And eventually, if the graft takes, it then grows into your hybrid tea roses. So that knot actually grows bigger and bigger and bigger, that graft, and you end up actually seeing it down here. This is the actual knot of your rose itself. This is the root stock down here, which is really the root that can grow in really bad soil. And the top part is your hybrid tree rose. And this knot will get larger and larger every year because it's really a wound that's being healing. And you can see here I have some different type of dead branches. So when we're actually going to take this back and prune it for winter, what we want to do is we want to take a look at the entire bush, and you try to examine what parts you have and how many branches you have and how many different branches you can have. First rule of thumb is you remove all dead branches. Now, since down here I have some dead branches like this one right here, I'm going to take the big loppers and I'm going to cut those off first. All right, and I see I have some dead one here. Okay, that might come out later on. The next thing I might do is I have to look at the entire bush to see what I have over here. And what I do have over here is I have basically try to open the inner side, try to keep this open, and then try to have a couple branches that go this way. What you do is you don't want branches to grow inside, else you end up having like aphids like this right here. So this particular rose bush has tons of aphids, and it has all of these little aphid eggs and everything. So obviously you want to have air coming in here to be able to breathe. So that's what we have to plan for next year. So what we got to do, we got to go down here and we have to cut these canes. So what we do here is when we're going to cut these canes, we have to look for what kind of branches will be coming out. For instance, this branch right here, you can see right here, has a new growth spurt right here. So we have a bud right there. We have buds right here, and we have some here, and going here. All right. So what I suggest is we probably take this one and take this branch off first because we want to cut it all the way to the bottom. Cut that one off first. We have to choose that we don't want any inner ones. So chances are this one can go. Here, I don't see any buds at the top, but it does. We probably want to keep this top right here. I see some buds over here, and I see a bud right there. Let's take this one out. And I see some buds right here, and we'll take this one out. All right. Now, with this, these are really big, huge thorns, so this can really be a sticky subject. So this is off to the compost. Now, one thing I need to warn you about, you can take a look on the underside of these leaves right here, and there's excessive amount of aphids and aphid eggs and things like that. It's actually quite gross. One is I'm not using any pesticides or herbicides on this particular rose bush, so I'm subjected to this kind of stuff. What I sometimes do is plant garlic next to it and really stink out the bugs and have no problem. The other thing that you do, a suggestion, is that you really need to take these and put it in the compost and make sure it gets to about 120, 130 degrees in the middle of the compost pile. So it actually will kill these bugs off, so it doesn't perpetuate when you take the compost to the rest of the yard. It doesn't spread these guys around. So these will go into the compost, and actually compost is actually quite fast.